Excuse me. Talking to you. Yes, you. So every Wednesday, I will be streaming on Discord, aka Discord, or on YouTube. Now that the format's going to slightly change in 2026 to one episode a week, I will have a lot more time to stream and hang out with you guys and chat and chill, play games, read stories, whatever. Tomorrow, 8 p.m. CST, I will be streaming on Discord. If you're not joined yet, please go join. Come hang out. Come hang out. We kind of keep it pretty open format. Again, chat and chill, might not do anything but just sit there and talk and shoot the sheet, or we play a game, or I will read some stories for a future episode, or even read your stories that you want me to. Yeah, and I want to become closer with my audience, aka you. So if that's something that interests you even slightly, please come over to Discord, join, hang out, or I'll see you on YouTube. So like I said, we'll rotate 1 week Discord, the next week YouTube, and so on and so forth. The link to the Discord will be in the description of this video, like it always is. I posted on my community chat, and not enough, but I'll start doing that a little bit more too. So yeah, I will stop droning on and on now. Leave you alone and enjoy these offshore rig stories. And I hope that we can form a James Bond now that I'll be able to chat a little bit more. Okay? Adios. Bye. I'm telling this story even though it's my husband's. He doesn't like talking about it, and he won't submit it to a show like this. He said, if you think it helps people understand what this job can do to a person, then I guess go ahead. So here I am. His story takes place in 2003, back when the money was really good. Better than good, honestly. We were catching up on bills, putting a little aside each month, talking about a nicer car eventually. He was gone a lot, and I measured our life in rotations. 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, sometimes longer if something broke out there. When he came home, he'd drop his bag and sleep for 10 hours, dead to the world, then wake up starving and smiling just like a little kid. It was weird, a wild time for us, and boy, was it a lot of fun. John isn't a diver. He worked in the dive control room, the DCO on paper, and worked as a DPO when the company needed one. Those days, he sat in the other chair, running the dynamic positioning console from the control room itself. He told me once the whole rig floats over a hole in the ocean floor, and the computer keeps it there. Thrusters, satellites, and alarms layered on top of alarms. It sounded like babysitting a skyscraper that wanted to drift away. I would always keep my questions simple. Are you safe? Do you sleep? When you coming back? He'd kiss my cheek and say yes, and soon. When he was offshore, I learned to ignore the awful background noise when he called me. Helicopters, pipes, crashing waves. He'd send pictures of the worst food I'd ever seen. He'd joke about everything out there, little things, big things, and it was just to put my mind at ease. This is what happened. A diver went down into the riser tunnel for routine work, and something went wrong. That's the whole story in one line. What happened to John is something else entirely, though. This is what he told me, a beer sweating in his hand one night. They'd been watching that riser for weeks. It'd been giving them a lot of trouble. Pressure fluctuations, temperature swings, nothing catastrophic, but enough to stay on the log. The company decided to shut it down and send a diver to take a look at it. Routine maintenance. That's what everybody kept saying. John was in the dive control room that shift, working as a DCO. He sat surrounded by monitors and comm panels, very claustrophobic, even without actually being underwater. The diver's name was Ethan. He'd been down there before. Real level-headed guy, no nonsense. They would always send calm ones to the tight spaces. Around mid-morning, they lowered the bell. John watched on the feed as the water swallowed it, the lights fading until it was all blue-black.
Control, this is Bell 1.
Ethan's voice came through, faint but clear.
Descending. Everything's good down here.
That first hour went really easy. Ethan followed the plan section by section, inspecting the riser interior with his handheld camera and all of his tools. The metal was coated in a film of silt and algae, normal for the age. He brushed it off with a gloved finger and gave some calm reports back.
No cracks here, little corrosion there.
Routine. So they went back and forth for an hour before it happened. Ethan's tone suddenly changed.
Control, I got movement.
Say again?
It feels like flow is picking up, current's pulling at my tether.
There shouldn't have been any current. The line was isolated, sealed, motionless water in a steel pipe. John looked over at the subsea gauges, everything read normal. The supervisor leaned over his shoulder. Ethan, confirm you're clipped in.
Clipped and holding. Pressure shifting, feels like the whole pipe's breathing.
They heard the strain in his voice then, the rush of gases in his face. The video showed bits of debris whipping past the camera. Could be residual suction, somebody muttered behind John. Maybe a valve opened up downstream? Negative, said the subsea tech. All the valves are closed. We're locked in topside. Still, the noise in Ethan's feed deepened, a low roar under his voice.
Control, something's not right down here. My umbilical's caught.
Where? John asked.
3 flanges, I can see them snagged above me, trying to work it free.
Copy that, John said. Stay calm and move slowly. They listened as he worked. You could hear his gloves on the metal, faint tapping and scraping through the headset.
All right, first one's loose,
he said after a minute.
I'm working on the next.
Then came a sound that John really didn't like. A shocked inhale.
Control, I think I cut the umbilical.
Ethan said. His breathing had picked up instantly.
Lost air feed on bailout.
Everybody in the room froze. Without that line, he'd have maybe 5-6 minutes of air in his tank. John went icy still. Don't panic. Keep your breathing steady. We're assessing options. The supervisor called for the standby diver, but the current readings below were already too volatile. Sending another man down there would likely kill him too.
Control,
Ethan said.
Pressure's still rising. I can't see anything. It feels like it's pulling me toward the narrow.
Stay together, John said. Keep yourself tight, but don't fight it.
I'm trying,
Ethan said. His voice had broke for the first time.
It's fucking pulling me, man. I can't.
The transmission cut the static. Ethan, come in. No answer. They held the line open. A minute passed, then another. Someone started timing oxygen use under their breath. The comms were quiet except for that faint hiss. Then came a slow, wet sound. In and out. In and out. John took a second to realize what it was. Breathing, he said. I can hear Ethan's breathing. Nobody moved. The noise kept coming, mechanical almost, but it was definitely breathing. The life support tech adjusted the gain, thinking maybe the line was feeding back, but the sounds stayed the same. Soft, drawn breaths, like somebody struggling to stay awake. Everybody agreed it was a biological sound. Control, Coast Guard's on standby, the supervisor said finally. We can't reach him until the pressure stabilizes. John didn't answer. He watched the blank monitor. It was all he could do in the moment. Every few minutes, somebody would try again. Ethan, respond. Nothing though. Only the slow breathing, sometimes faint, sometimes a little clearer, like the signal was drifting up and down that pipe. At the 30-minute mark, the supervisor said they had to call it. The current wasn't settling and the Coast Guard couldn't get a support vessel there for another 2 hours at least. It was too late. John stayed at the console even after the others had cleared the room. He said it felt wrong to leave the line dead quiet, like hanging up would actually make it final. He had to honor Ethan down there, and the only way to do that was by listening to every sound that he made. He sat there for more than an hour, and the breathing never stopped. Sometimes it would slow down to almost nothing, then come back a little stronger, drawn through the static. ragged and human. He kept telling himself maybe it was feedback, a pressure loop somewhere in the cable, maybe just trapped air, but he didn't have the heart to turn it off. He said when the sound finally quit, it didn't fade, it just stopped, like a switch flipped. The recovery crew went down the next day. The report said they found pieces of the suit and tether tangled near the lower flange. The pressure differential had torn most of it apart. John made a copy of the report and framed it. It still hangs in his office. He told me that night he could still hear it, those long, uneven breaths echoing through a broken line. Someone caught between the surface and the dark and didn't know which way was up. He told me the worst part wasn't actually the sound itself, but how normal everything seemed afterward. The rig went back to work after a few days. The section was sealed, the investigation closed, and the replacement parts flown in on the next supply run. He said you'd never even know somebody just died down there. And that's the thing about the ocean, he said. It's like money. There's just so much of it. He still worked offshore for another 10 years, but something in him changed that day. He kept to himself. He didn't talk about the crew, didn't tell any stories anymore. When he was home, he'd leave the TV on through the night. That had helped him sleep. One morning, he came in from his shower pale as a ghost. Said he thought he heard the same slow breathing again when he turned off the water. It turned out to be the AC vent. He laughed it off. Guess I need some background sounds all the time now, huh? After that, he started leaving the shower running while he shaved or brushed his teeth. The sound would fill the house, muffling everything else. I never told him it made me think of what he'd heard down there, all that moving water. John's retired now, doesn't touch anything to do with the industry. The only thing left from those years is a framed photo of his crew around the control deck and Ethan's death report. I asked once if any of the men in that picture were still around. All except the divers. And that was the last thing he ever said about it. I was a roustabout, the lowest rung with the dirtiest hands, and I loved every fucking minute of it. I worked the deck with the crane operators. Fetch this, haul that, chain down pallets, scrub until the steel showed up again. The pay was stupid good for a guy like me too, and the weeks stacked into months if the weather behaved itself. Most days it didn't though. One minute you're hosing mud off the grating, next you're hunched under a stairwell while the wind tries to pop the rig like a beer can. Nothing about the job really ever stayed the same either. Schedules will flip, alarms scream, both drills or for real. Bosses vanished mid-contract, replaced by another boss who knew your name without ever even meeting you. Working on the deck was a trip. The crane whistled, the hook swung wide, and somebody would yell, "Heads!" and we all scattered like birds in the wind. Everything out there was very corporate. The paperwork was thicker than the fog. We worked alongside data logs. Even the ocean felt sterile, full of lights and cables. Still, there were some really good moments. Coffee at 03, a smoke with the crane op while the sun squeezed through the mist. Watching sharks swim by the rig, talking about our dreams and memories of home. The night that helicopter came in, we were halfway through shift change. I was stacking rig mats by the crane when the helipad lights flared up against the fog. No radio call, no kind of warning. Just a black chopper settling down from the blacker sky above it. "Who the hell's that?" Mays asked from the guardrails. The rotors never slowed. One man got out, thin, neat, wearing a suit and polished shoes that had never been crusted with salt. He carried a single piece of luggage. The tool pusher Darian jogged up the stairs to meet him, talking quickly. They then disappeared inside the control office without a word to the rest of us. The helicopter rose up into the air and disappeared. At morning briefing, Darian cleared his throat. "Guys, we got company today. Observer on board, Mr. Hagen. Treat him like any other rep." That was all he said. Mr. Hagen kept to himself, always watching, never working. You'd look up from a winch or a hose line and see him standing there, eyes on your hands, face remaining blank. He carried this little notebook, wrote in it constantly, coffee black, no small talk whatsoever. We all started calling him Mr. Corporate. 2 days later, Darian announced that we'd start drilling a new well, fresh hole on the east side. Nobody really knew why. The old wells were steady and pumping crazy numbers, but orders were orders, right? And overtime meant money. I hauled pallets, chained down gear, scrubbed the deck slick with silt. Hagen followed Darian like a shadow, then would wander off alone, inspecting everything else. Maze said to me, "He's checking for ghosts." "Probably measuring us for layoffs," I said, "seeing how much fat can go." I made a scissor motion with my fingers after that. That first week went smooth enough. We set casing and ran pipe, hit a decent rate of penetration. Then during one shift, the bit hit the section of rock that made the whole rig tremble. Nothing scary, but damn, we all felt it. Everything on board shook for 3 days straight. By 4 in the morning, the trembling had turned into a hum, a low vibration that lived inside the steel. Coffee cups now buzzed on the table. Bunk frames shook just enough to wake you up. "The vibration's normal at this depth," Darian told us. "Stay focused, guys." But it wasn't normal. The hum deepened every single day, the bass note under everything. It never even stopped. Even when the pumps went quiet, the sound would carry throughout the hall, like the ocean itself was purring around us. Maze started calling it the hum, and everybody did after that. It wasn't just a sound either, it was pressure. You could actually feel it in your chest, behind your eyes. The railings vibrated when you'd hold onto them. The floor plates tickled against your boots. Sleep came light and jumpy. You'd wake up thinking somebody was humming along to the radio. Hagen seemed to be thrilled. He took readings with a small handheld device and filled pages in that notebook. He never even wore ear protection either. I caught him once by the mudroom, crouched beside the drainage grate. "What is that?" I asked him. He looked up at me calm as ever. "Nothing to worry about," he said. "If you can feel it, it's all good." "Good?" He smiled, nodded, and then just went back to his work. The hum got worse as we neared the total depth. The mud loggers complained about strange readings, gas ratios that didn't even make sense, temperature fluctuations inside solid rock. One said he could feel the fillings in his teeth vibrating all the time now. At night, spoons would rattle in the galley. The PA hissed with the hum. It's like whatever we drilled into had affected the entire oil rig. Then, during the final drilling, the rig seemed to go almost into this coma. The pumps wound down, engines idled, and yet that hum continued to stay, low and perfect, vibrating the air itself. Nothing on the rig itself would work now. I was on the deck when Hagen stepped up beside me. His eyes were bright, almost feverish. "You hear it?" he asked me. "Of course I do. What the hell else would I hear?" I said back. He nodded at me. "Yeah, it's strong today." And that was the last thing he ever said to me. His mug sat in the galley sink, half full. Nobody saw the helicopter come back, but by dawn, Hagen and his suitcase were both gone. But the hum remained, stronger somehow. It followed us through every corridor, through the mess, even in our dreams. Darian called us up to another meeting that afternoon. He looked tired, sick almost. "Operations are suspended," he said. "Corporate orders coming down. Pack up your gear, boys." Nobody asked him why. We packed up in silence. When the supply boat ferried us back out, the rig was still thrumming, a black silhouette humming against the gray water. That was when I took note of the fish, the birds. They were all gone. No more sharks cutting through the white water, no birds drifting against the wind. Even from miles away, I swore I could feel it through the deck, coming up through the water and into my bloodstream. That was the last time I ever saw that rig. Once back on shore, nobody was talking about it, not the company, not the crew, just silence. 1 week after we were pulled, my phone rang from this restricted number. A woman's voice told me that the project was now being reevaluated. She thanked me for my service and told me to expect a new contract coming soon. I received a new contract, but it was for a totally different rig and completely different waters. I bounced around for a while, contract here, short hitch here, but nothing ever felt the same. That hum had spoiled the quiet for me. I'd be lying in my bed back home and swear I could feel it running faint against the drywall, deep in the plumbing. Sometimes I'd wake up gripping the mattress like it was moving. A few months later, I ran into Darian at a yard in Galveston. He looked really worn down. I asked if he heard anything about that old job. He nodded and threw the rest of his flask back. "They shut it down," he said. "Whole rig said there were structural problems." "What do you mean? What kind of problems?" He just shrugged at me. "I scuttled it. Sank her where she stood. Said it was safer than dragging her back in." That didn't make sense. Rigs don't get sunk unless something's gone catastrophically wrong. "Was it because of the hum?" I asked him. He didn't answer me. He just gave me that tight corporate smile that I'd seen on him 100 times before that and walked away. After that, I just stopped asking. What was the point? Still, word travels offshore. A mud engineer I knew from another platform said the site was fenced off by naval coordinates, declared non-navigable. No other explanation. Another guy claimed that one of his cousins worked the cleanup, that the readings downhole, pressure, sound, whatever, had spiked days after we left. He said they pulled Hagen's signature off every order filed for that well. One night, I took the time and looked him up. No record, not under any company roster, not in state licensing, not in any government archive. It was like he'd been written in pencil and then erased clean. I guess I figure it's better that way, right? I think around a year later, a buddy texted me a video clip, grainy footage from a fishing trawler passing over our old coordinates. The sonar made this low pulsing pattern, a perfect rolling tone that made the camera shake. "Recognize that?" was what the text said. And I did. Even through the static, I could feel it, that same endless vibration. If you work out in the Gulf, watch out for Hagen and that hum. I took the roustabout job just like everybody else inside my little community. In our town, you either chase a scholarship, you chase a girl, or chase a day rate. And the rig paid better than both of those first two options put together. I wasn't afraid of hard work. I liked it. Out there, the rules were really simple. Do your job, watch your hands, don't slip or fall. The night my story takes place, I was walking from the barracks to the mess hall for some coffee. The catwalk was slick from the spray. The sky was blacked out, stars buried underneath the clouds. I kept my head down and watched the water. Below, the ocean worked the legs of the rig like a dog gnawing at a bone. Inside the corridor, it was bright and warm. I relaxed, and that's when I took notice some prints, wet boot prints crossing the passage, heading nowhere in particular, then kind of veering off, then coming back. Not a straight line, big prints too, size 12, maybe bigger. I stepped over the first set, followed them. I thought maybe somebody had fallen in or there'd been some kind of accident. They led past the laundry, down a ladder, through an entire other level. At one hatch, I pushed out onto the weather deck. The prints then continued throughout the darkness. I kept tracing them until I reached one of the sea gates, the cut in the guardrail where the supply boats tied off. The prints came from the ladder that fed off into the ocean. They climbed up out of dark water, but who? I stood there listening. Just the ocean and the steady heart of the rig. No one on watch had called a boarding. No boat horn. Nada. The trail wound back inside and somehow into my bunk room, right to my door. The prints were fading into this damp shrine. Some kind of joke, I thought to myself. New guy earning their stripes. I decided I'd find Phil in comms. If anybody knew about a late tie-up or hand-playing games, it would be him. The walk back to comms wasn't very long. The corridors echoed, but the constant vibration from the pumps made everything rattle around me. I passed a few guys heading to their bunks. A quick hello, and then they were gone. I came back to the catwalk and found a fog had now rolled in. It came faster than I'd ever seen before, and by the time I reached the outer walkway, the ocean was gone. The entire world now blended into one thick, colorless wall. The rig's floodlights turned into a glowing soup, and within minutes, The whole structure felt adrift, as if the legs had snapped and we were just floating somewhere else entirely. The temperature then plummeted, and my breath came out and I could see it, adding to the mist. The metal railing sweated with condensation, and the air felt electric. I kept moving, one hand on the rail. The sound of the water was the only thing really constant beneath me. By the time I finally reached the door to comms, I was half jogging. Inside, I expected silence and green screens. Instead, the room was just buzzing. 10 guys stood around in their coveralls, faces pale in the monitor light. A couple of them were arguing, one smoking, which was against the rules. Phil sat up against the console, headset clamped over his ears, staring straight ahead. When he saw me, he motioned over to me without another word. I started to ask what was going on, but he just took the headset off and then put it on me. At first, I assumed it was static, hissing, low hums, the occasional blip. Then I realized there was some kind of pattern to it. Beneath the noise, a voice was whispering some kind of gibberish, male maybe. The words weren't English at first. I heard syllables that didn't quite fit together. Then I started catching fragments, actual names. Luis Hernandez, Carter Cruz, Hassan Aheen. The tone didn't change, it just kept listing off names. Raymond Bussell, Jansen Williams, Phil Dunbar. Then it said mine, clear as a bell. I ripped off the headset. "The fuck is this?" I asked him. Phil didn't smile at me. "You heard it too, huh?" "Dude, what is that?" I repeated. He shrugged and rubbed his eyes. "That's the thing, it's been going on for 20 minutes now. No source, we tried tracing it. The radio, radar, sonar, all blank. It's coming from somewhere outside in the fog, or maybe bouncing off of it. Hell, I don't know." The others looked really uneasy. One of the electricians did that Catholic cross thing. Somebody muttered that we should call the bridge, but Phil said they already did. The captain's order was to keep monitoring it until the fog cleared up. He said it's just voices, nothing to be scared of. I went to the window, but nothing but white outside. Even the floodlights seemed to vanish a few feet out. "Is there any other ships nearby?" I asked him, and Phil shook his head at me. "No contacts." The voice in the headset started to rise, not louder but faster. I picked it up again just to confirm that I didn't imagine it. The list was now speeding up, names tumbling out one after another until they blurred back into gibberish again. Then it stopped, went dead quiet, and every single man in that room held their breath. A low metallic groan rippled through the fog, deep enough that we felt it in our feet. The monitors flickered, the whole place went dim for a second. "Power surge," somebody said behind me. Outside, the fog pulsed, and I swear it was starting to move. Phil grabbed a flashlight and motioned for me to follow him up to the bridge. "We need eyes," he said. "If it's a vessel, we'll see it from up there." So we stepped out into the fog. I couldn't see the deck until my boots actually hit it. The beam of his light went maybe 6 feet before dying off in the gray. Everything dripped and echoed. The ocean was somewhere below, unseen but alive with crashing waves. We made it halfway to the bridge when the alarm blared out. 3 rising tones that scared the piss out of us. We both froze. Emergency procedures during fog roll-ins tell you to stay put, but all of this had my skin crawling. And the alarm blare was really weird, as we didn't have a triple tone warning for anything. Phil looked over at me. "What brought you to the comm room?" I'd totally forgotten till now. I explained to him the wet boot prints that I found, how they tracked all over. He nodded along and then told me, "Let's get inside." We hurried the rest of the way, super nervous, that fog pressing so close I almost choked on it. When we reached the bridge, the door was already open and a few guys were gathered at the rail outside, staring off into the night. Their voices were hushed and uncertain. One of them turned when he heard us, and he looked scared as hell. Phil stepped up beside him and killed his flashlight, letting his eyes adjust. The mist glowed faintly from the rig lights, but we still couldn't see a damn thing. The ocean usually has rhythm, waves, breaks, wind, but it sounded like there was something disrupting all of that, just beyond that curtain of fog. "Maybe a barge drifted in or something," one guy said. Phil frowned over at him. "No horn? No chatter from the deck? That makes no sense." We waited, but no sound came, just that dull slapping, a slow heartbeat within the fog. Behind us, the alarm rang once again, same 3 chirps, which was meaningless to all of us. Then through the veil of the fog, I swore that I heard it, that voice. Not from the headset this time though, it was out there, somewhere in that gray wall, whispering to us, that same tone, that same rhythm, listing off those names. Phil stiffened up beside me. "You hear it?" I nodded. We stood there for another minute, maybe 2, everybody dead silent. The intercom crackled above us, the day manager's voice.
"All hands return to duty. Fog's thinning. This ain't a break."
Nobody moved until he repeated the orders. Then, like somebody breaking some kind of spell, everybody shuffled off. Phil and I stayed last, staring at the fog until it finally began to peel away. Sure as shit, there wasn't anything out there but more clouds. As the air cleared, the lights reached us further out on the water. There was nothing there. No ship, no barge, nothing big enough to make that kind of sound. The surface was calm, untouched except for the legs of the rig disappearing down into the blackness. We went back to comms. The room was empty now. The headset lay there on the desk, silent as can be. I put it on and nothing, just the usual white noise and faint pings. Phil sat down beside me, rubbing his eyes in his face. That voice, it stopped right when the fog lifted. "Yeah, I know." I hesitated. "But hey, that's what I came to talk to you about in the first place, those prints." He looked up and his brow furrowed. "Oh yeah." So I told him again how they trailed from the sea gate through half the rig and then stopped right at my bunk door. He didn't laugh and he didn't really say much of anything. We went to look just to settle it. Down the corridor, the deck was still damp. The footprints were almost gone now, fading into nothing but dark stains where the water had dried up. Phil crouched and ran his fingers over the metal. "Tide water," he said quietly. "That's real salt. Whoever left these came out of the ocean, or at least held their boots in the spray." "Well, what the fuck, man? Do you think this stuff is connected?" I asked him. Phil just shrugged at me and ran a hand through his hair. "Let's hope not." We stuck together the rest of the night, but nothing else weird happened. No lurking waterlogged zombies, no more voices on the radio. Honestly, nothing like that ever happened again, but you better believe we were both shitting bricks every time a fog would roll in after that, even when we were on shore. I always told people that being on a rig felt like a small town built out of ladders. You go up, you go down, you keep your head, and then you come home. That was my rule for the first 2 years that I worked offshore. Keep your head. But that all ended on the day a man got blown off the catwalk by a gas burst. We were on night crew. I was hauling hose near the shaker house when a driller's voice came over the radio.
"Stand by. Gas kit coming."
The floor hands moved in that quick, professional way that says this is normal, but we need a boogie. Get caught out there and it could be death. I saw Benny up on the catwalk, leaning to eyeball a gauge. He was a stringy guy from Lake Charles. "You see that?" he shouted down to me. "She's..." It hit him before he finished his sentence. A violent cough went out of the well, a punch of gas and mud that came up as a wet fist. The catwalk boomed. Benny's arms windmilled once and he was gone, flung off the railing and into the mud pit like a doll into a trout. "Man overboard! Mud pit! Mud pit!" Somebody screamed. Alarms went off and I ran. We all did. The pit churned like that sand thing from the Star Wars movie. Mud and water slammed the rig, surged and then sucked, and drove back again in those mechanical throbs from the pumps that don't care about human beings. Benny vanished, popped up, and then vanished. His clothing came off in strips and then vanished back into the mud. "Hook him!" the tool pusher yelled. "Kill the pumps! Kill him!" I dropped to my knees at the edge and threw a line. The first cast slapped the mud and then skated. A roughneck beside me jammed a pike hook towards Benny's sleeve and unfortunately missed. The pit dragged him down and then slammed him up against the grate. He came up spitting and blind, fingers clawing at his face. "Hold still, damn it!" I shouted. The second throw clipped his shoulder. He grabbed it and lost it, but grabbed it again. I leaned so far my belt cut into me, and for a second, I felt the suction tug at me, a hungry pull, and the thought flashed. This rig will eat us both and not even feel a goddamn thing. The pumps then stuttered, the throb faltered, and he had the rope. We hauled Benny out on the third heave and sprawled him onto the deck. He lay there coughing up gray water for at least 5 minutes. His eyes then found mine. "I'm good," he gasped, grinning through the sludge. "I'm good." Nobody believed him, but we all nodded anyway because, well, there he was. And nobody could believe that he was actually alive. The medic gave Benny the all clear the next morning. A few bruises, a cut above his brow, but nothing broken. "Rest, hydrate, light duty," she said. By that evening, he was back in the mess hall eating cereal and laughing it up with the guys. You'd think he'd never even been flung off the rig at all. 2 days later, he was cleared back again for full duty. The OIM signed the release and said, "Keep an eye on him." And that was that. Nobody argued. We were very short-handed and Benny wanted back in, so that was that. At first, things went right back to normal. He joked around, hit his marks, didn't miss a beat. But I started taking note of little things. The way he kept checking the railings, testing his footing, or even how he stopped mid-sentence, listening for something nobody else was hearing. One night on the shaker deck, he turned to me and said, "You feel that?" Feel what?" "The rig, the water, all of it." I laughed, thinking he was trying to be funny. After that day, he got a lot quieter, stopped really eating, and the other guys said that he was barely even sleeping now. By the end of the week, he was super jumpy. He'd flinch at the sound of the pump starting up or the chain clattering. That night during a maintenance shift, all hell broke loose. We were swapping filters when Benny just froze, eyes locked on the mud pit below. You hear that?" he whispered to me. "Dude, hear what?" "God, what is that?" he asked. But before I could ask what he was talking about, he swung around and shoved me into the railing. And I'm talking hard. The breath went out of me. His hands were on my throat. No warning, no words, just pure panic in his eyes as he tried to choke the fucking life out of me. I tried to push him off, but he was stronger than I expected him to be. His lips were moving, whispering something I couldn't make out. Then somebody shouted his name. He snapped out of it, almost like he was sleepwalking. He let go, stepped back, and looked around like he didn't recognize where he was. Then he took off, bolted to the lower decks. Alarms went off seconds later, echoing throughout the rig.
"Secure all decks."
We spread out to find him, moving through the levels with flashlights and radios. The wind was picking up, rocking the structure just enough to make it creak. You could hear him before you actually saw him, his boots and his breathing.
"Benny!"
the OIM shouted over the radio.
"Stop where you are. Let's get you home, son."
But Benny was not listening. He tore through the narrow catwalk, slamming doors and screaming the whole way. When we finally cornered him near the pump room, he was a complete mess, covered in grease, hands bleeding from climbing across gatings. "Stay back," he warned. "It's under us. It's still here." Nobody moved. The medic then began talking to him like he was a scared animal. Then the OIM gave a signal. Two of the biggest deckhands grabbed him from behind. He fought hard and broke one guy's nose before they finally pinned him down and hit him with a sedative. When the chopper came at dawn, we carried him to the helipad, strapped to a gurney. He was still muttering something under his breath. And that was the last time I ever saw Benny. He was transferred to a hospital on shore and never came back. Nobody really said much after that either. Every now and again, though, somebody will bring him up after a few beers, and the story's always the same. Benny saw something down in that pit when the blowout hit. Something in the water that shouldn't have been there, made him go crazy. I personally don't buy that shit. I think he hit his head, developed some kind of brain injury when he hit the water, severe PTSD from being inside that pit. Whatever it is and whatever happened, I just hope he's doing better.